Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Maths. I'm your host, Maths, aka Nuptial Failures, and today we're going to be talking about even more probabilities in Minecraft. So for those of you who haven't seen, last time we talked about how to make tons of different probabilities in Minecraft. Basically, if you want to simulate something like a 1 in 12 probability, you can do that. Or maybe a 15 in 81 probability. That's also something that you could do. We saw that basically we just needed this basic component, which was a randomizer, so that allowed you to randomize anything. A netherite sword was basically an event that we counted because that triggered this redstone comparator here. And the non-stackable items were events that we didn't count it. So just through some combinations of these, we could have make any probability that was out of anything from 2 all the way up to 9. But then we saw that we can make it more complex by combining them with things using AND gates. And so we saw a few different examples of this, and you could maybe do some more complicated ones. But then in the video, I discussed some limitations to this approach. One example was we couldn't do 11 out of 12. And a reason for this is, how do we make 11 out of 12 by using just multiplication? To make 11, we need 11 times 1. But to make 12, we need either 2 times 6 or 3 times 4, right? But if these are our denominators, one of them needs 11 because 11 is prime, right? And so 11 wasn't going to fit into any of these denominators. So it seemed like this wasn't going to be possible. However, a lot of people in the comments suggested that I use complements. And I can't believe I didn't even think about this, especially considering we've talked about complements several times in other videos, but here we are. So those smart people suggested that we use complements, and it was suggested enough where I initially thought, okay, well, people reading the comments, they'll see it, they'll get the idea. But I also thought, well, there's probably a lot of people who aren't going to read the comments, and the implementation of it might not be super easy, and there's a small subtlety with the implementation of it that I will show you today. So I figured, you know what? Let's just make a quick little video on it. I know I've already made a couple topics past the Minecraft probabilities video, but I figured we'd just go back to it really quick here and just revisit it. Implementing complements. How do we use complements to get other probabilities? So just really quick, what is a complement? So right here, I have a 1/3 probability generator, right? There's a 1 of the non-stackable items out of the 3 right here. And the complement of a 1/3 event is basically the chance that it doesn't occur. So if there's a 1 netherite sword in here, the chance of it occurring is 1 in 3. What's the chance of it not occurring? It would be one of these 2 stackable items getting shot rather than the netherite sword. So that would be a 2 in 3 chance, right? So we say that the complement of 1/3 is 2/3. And we can get that by noting that 1 minus 1/3 equals 2/3, right? Because all the probabilities, we have to think of them as adding up to 1, because that's all of our possibilities. If we're taking away the probability of one of the outcomes, that leaves us with the probability of the rest of them, right? So if we can somehow negate this 1/3 probability generator, right, so basically get the opposite event happening, well, that should give us a 2/3 probability generator. Now, of course, we could just do something like this and say, hey, that's a 2/3 probability generator. But I want to just show you how it works, because there will be examples where the probability can only be made by using the complement. So let's just start with this simple example here. So we want to get the complement of 1/3. We have the regular probability simulator right here. But then what I do is, unlike over here, where it just goes straight through into the AND gate, I actually attach it to a redstone torch. And remember that a redstone torch, when it gets power, right? So when a redstone torch gets power, it's shut off, right? So essentially what's going to happen is that when the netherite sword goes in here, it's actually going to shut this off. So essentially, this is only going to be active when not the netherite sword gets shot out. So that means essentially this will be activated in the complement trials. It'll be activated when it's not the netherite sword that goes out, but rather when it's one of these 2 stackable items, which won't give a strong enough signal to actually turn this off. And so then you might think, okay, we'll just attach this to the note block and then we're good to go. However, the problem is that this will be on always, right? This is on by default. So even when we're not doing a trial, this is going to be on. And so the problem is it's not going to actually send any signal out if it's just on by default, right? Because if we look here, right, if we already have a note block here, and let's say the dropper goes through into here, that's going to just keep this on, but that's not going to actually send it any pulse to actually turn the note block on because it's just already been activated. So we kind of have to move it out of this default state. So the way I did that is I took the output from the complemented probability simulator, and then I ANDed it with the pulse from the button, because when we press the button, that's actually a trial, right? That's actually when we're simulating a probability here. So by pressing this button, it's going to do a trial over here, but it's also going to send a signal over to this AND gate. So basically this AND gate will only activate if both we're doing a trial and not the netherite sword happened. The complement of the netherite sword happened. And so that is how we actually implement our 2/3 probability generator, by doing the complement of the 1/3. So in that case, it would have been one of these two that went through because this triggered because we did a trial, and this didn't trigger because, well, this stayed off, right? So that means this didn't turn off, which means that the complement of the netherite sword, or one of these two items, actually went through. So that did a 2/3 probability right there. Okay, let's move on to something more complicated where we actually need to use a complement line. Because again, this was kind of a trivial case where we could have just set this up without doing the complement line. The 11/12 machine. All right, so over here, we have the 11/12 probability. Last video, I said it couldn't be done, but now it can be. Because all we have to do is, if we take the complement of 11/12, that's 1 out of 12. And 1 out of 12 is a probability we can do. We just have to do 1/4 times 1/3, right? So if we just add these two probabilities together, so a 1 in 3 chance times a 1 in 4 chance, we will definitely get it to work. So what I have here is I have just kind of both of these probability simulators going into an AND gate like normal. However, when we added the two probability simulators, the AND gate had a torch attached to it, right? So basically these both had to be off in order for it to be activated. Whereas over here, I don't have a torch attached to it. And what that is accomplishing is I've essentially inverted the signal, right? Because the torch, it turns off when they're both on, but over here, I don't have that state. So essentially, in order for this gate to remain on, we cannot have it where both netherite swords go through, right? So that's the 1 in 12 chance, right? That's when both netherite swords go through. That's the 1 in 12 chance that we're negating. And we're negating that by not putting a torch here, right? So that's doing the opposite signal as what we would have been doing. And then just like before, we have a complement line that takes the signal from the button and it goes through here. And then that is going to be AND gated with the actual result from over there. So this is only going to activate the AND gate and hit the note block when A, we're doing a trial, and B, we're only getting it where not both netherite swords happen. So that's the 11 in 12 chance where we get some combination of either only stackable items or 1 netherite sword and 1 stackable item, because that also won't activate the AND gate fully. All right, so just to show you this in action, if I remove everything except the swords, this is going to guarantee the swords go through. Notice it didn't activate the note block because both of these torches turned off, which then turned this one on, which meant it was impossible for this torch to turn back on to activate the note block. So essentially we've negated the possibility of these 2 netherite swords making an output. But if we had something else, like let's say 1 netherite sword and 1 green concrete, that's no longer the event that we want to complement, right? That can happen. So when we press this, we do get a note block signal because even though this turned off from the netherite sword, this one stayed on, which kept this torch off, which means that the line from the button there, that turns this off, which activated the whole AND gate, and it went through. So that was an event that was complemented to both netherite swords because it was something where it wasn't both netherite swords, which means that a signal went through. The 6300th machine. All right, so let's do one more complicated example. And this is another one I said that wasn't possible last time that we will show is possible this time. So this is doing a 63 in 100 probability. So 63 out of 100, that's the same thing as 21 over 25 times 3/4, right? Multiply the numerators, we get 63. Multiply the denominators, we get 100. All right, so 3/4, we can do that, right? That's nice and easy. And we want to AND that with the probability of 21 over 25. The problem is that we can't do 21 over 25 with normal means because 21, that's 3 times 7, and we have to do 3 times 7 there. Those are its only prime factors. And 25, that is 5 times 5. So essentially we're forced to have a 7 over 5, But again, that's not possible, right? We can't have probabilities where the numerator exceeds the denominator, which means that we weren't able to do it with the methods I taught in the last video. But in this video, we can do it because if we consider the complement of 21 over 25, that's going to be 4 out of 25, and that's something we can do because 4 out of 25 can be split up into 2/5 times 2/5. So 2/5 times 2/5 is 4/25, right? So if we take the complement of 4/25, we'll get 21 over 25, and then we just take that result there, and we're going to add it with this 3/4, and we will have essentially done this multiplication, which will give us the probability that we're looking for. All right, so now that we have that in mind, let's just look at the complement here. So same setup as over there. We're just doing a 2/5 probability with a 2/5 probability, putting them into this AND gate that doesn't have a torch attached to it. So that's essentially negating it, right? Taking the complement here. And that goes into this AND gate over here that's being ANDed with the pulse line, just to make sure that this is actually being activated on a trial. And then this button's also activating this 3/4 line. So then what we do is we take the 3/4 line and we put it into an AND gate. So this needs to be off. So that's the 3/4 line activated. And then both of these need to be off. So that's the complement of the 4/25 or the 1/25 occurring. So then what we end up getting is that, so that all goes into a single AND gate here, which then turns this torch on and activates the note block. So then that will give us a probability of 63 out of 100. Concluding thoughts. All right, so that's going to do it for me today. I hope you found this video interesting, and now we have even more probabilities that we can make in Minecraft by just using this one simple little device, the redstone torch, because that inverts our signal, and that's what gives us the complement. The implementation was maybe a little bit more tricky than just using a redstone torch, just to make sure that we actually kind of get a pulse going through. We had to use that little AND gate there. But hey, it's a good application of AND gates, and it's a good application of complements. So without further ado, that's going to be it for me today. You have a good one, you stay groovy, and I'll see you in that next juicy Bo Maths video.